Okay, so good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Mahabodhi Center of Sunnyvale, California. And so this will be a kind of very simple, basic mini retreat that we're having today on the theme of, I call it, finding joy in the wholesome. And the reason why I take this theme is because there's kind of widespread conviction amongst many Buddhists that the way to liberation, the way to enlightenment has to be a very stern, austere, demanding, painful way. And so one finds many very traditional Buddhists go around their practice, what I say maybe not so much the traditional Buddhists, but it's the Westerners who adopt Buddhism. I see somebody who's shaking their head, have the conviction that the way to really advance in Dhamma is to undergo these very long, grueling, intensive meditation retreats over long periods, sitting for many, many hours. Of course, if people have the natural skill to do that, that's very fine. But sometimes people push themselves too hard and then they go about their everyday life with these kind of grim expression on the face. And so the way to be a good Buddhist, a true Buddhist, is the graver and grimmer the expression on your face, the more solid proof that is that you're a serious practitioner. I think I used to be like that too in my early days. I was a serious practitioner. But over the years, as I become an unserious practitioner, then I feel looser and looser in my practice, but maybe happier inside. And if you look into the discourses of the Buddha, you see that the Buddha places a great emphasis on joy, happiness, delight as the bridge between, let's say, our everyday life, the life governed by ethical principles, and the deeper stages of meditative practice. Like there is a sutta that comes several variations on this in the Anguttara Nikaya. Let me just get that text. Okay, so we have this series. This is in the Anguttara Nikaya, Book of Elevens, the first sutta in the Book of Elevens, where we have the sequence that begins with virtuous behavior, that is, behavior governed by sila, by the precepts. So the benefit of virtuous behavior is non-remorse. So when you observe the precepts, then you have a clear mind, a confident mind, a tranquil mind, because you're not troubled by regrets, remorse. And then out of non-regret arises pamoja. Pamoja is, we translate as joy. And then from joy arises piti. Piti, in this translation, I use rapture, which maybe is not so good, but we call it delight or elation, the upliftment of the mind. And then out of this piti, delight, elation, comes passaddhi, which is tranquility. And then from tranquility comes sukha, happiness, bliss, pleasure, a kind of spiritual pleasure. And then out of sukha, this happiness or bliss, comes samadhi. And then from samadhi comes insight knowledge. And so the task, sort of in our basic practice, is to find mean of generating that joy. And so if one can do that, say, through a meditation practice like mindfulness of breathing, of course, that's very good. But the mindfulness of breathing could often be a rather dry, barren, dull, boring meditation subject. So, just to give an account of my own experience when I was a monk in my early days in Sri Lanka. So, the kind of practice that I learned was mindfulness of breathing and then going from mindfulness of breathing to bodily sensations. But after a certain period, I was finding that my practice was getting rather dry and brittle and sterile and barren. And then I felt the need to sort of enrich the practice by adding some like flavoring to it or spices to it or sugar or sweetness to it. That's better than spices, sweetness. It's like eating just plain yogurt, very sour. And so if you want to enjoy the yogurt, we add honey, bees honey, or in Sri Lanka, they add the ketul honey, which is the palm syrup honey. And then you have the yogurt becomes very delicious. So what I did was to look in the Visuddhimagga. This is the meditation manual, the path of purification. And I found two practices that I started to add to my regular meditation routine. One of these is the metta bhavana, the practice of loving kindness, and the other is Buddhanusati, recollection of the Buddha. And through the years, I've maintained this, what I call it, that balanced practice, using mindfulness and breathing or its variants as my main practice, but throwing in periods of metta bhavana, loving kindness meditation, mudita, the altruistic joy meditation, and Buddhanusati, recollection of the Buddha. And so what we'll be doing in this retreat, I've changed the format a little. We'll be doing in the morning recollection of the Buddha, and then after the walking meditation, recollection of the Dhamma and the Sangha. Then in the afternoon, we'll be doing, instead of sila and generosity, we'll be doing the metta meditation, loving kindness meditation for the first session, then the walking meditation, and then we'll do the mudita, the altruistic joy meditation. So we get a taste of the anusatis, those are the recollections in the morning, and then the Brahmavihara meditation in the afternoon. And the basic text, is my voice carrying? Because I keep on losing. How is this, Ben? Okay, so the basic text that I'm using for the recollections, it's in the, again, in the Anguttara Nikaya, in the Book of Sixes, it's Sutta number 10. And here the Buddha is speaking to one of the Sakyans. I think he's the cousin or uncle of the Buddha named Mahanama. And Mahanama asks, how does a noble disciple who has arrived at the fruit and understood the teaching often dwell? So those expressions, one who has arrived at the fruit and understood the Dhamma, suggests that Mahanama is asking about the dwelling of one who is at least a stream enterer. But we shouldn't think that you have to be at least a stream enterer to undertake these practices, because these types of practices can lead to different stages of concentration, to samadhi, and then can serve as a foundation for developing insight and realizing the stages of awakening. And so the Buddha begins by saying that the noble disciple recollects the Tathagata, the Buddha, and then he gives the formula, and I'll be going through the formula later. So I'm just going to skip over the formula for recollection of the Buddha, but then he says, when the disciple recollects the Buddha, on that occasion, his mind is not overrun by lust, hatred, and delusion. On that occasion, his mind is simply straight, taking the Buddha as its basis, as its object. And so we're bringing to mind, in the case of the Buddha, somebody whose mind is completely free of lust or greed, hatred, and delusion. And in that case, our mind is at least temporarily free from being overrun by thoughts of greed, hatred, and delusion. And then the noble disciple whose mind becomes straight gains the flavor of the meaning, gains the flavor of the Dhamma. This is the important phrase, gains joy connected with the Dhamma. So this is a kind of wholesome joy, which is rooted in the Dhamma, to calling to mind, bringing to mind the Buddha. Then when he is joyful, then piti arises. Piti is, here it's rendered rapture, which I said maybe not such an adequate rendering, but we call it delight or elation, this sort of uplifting of the mind. The mind becomes suffused with this delight. It's a spiritual delight. And then from when the mind is suffused with this delight, then the body settles down, sort of the disturbances of the body settles down, and the body and mind settle down. And then when the body and mind settle down, then one experiences sukha, this inner happiness. And then when one experiences this inner happiness, then the mind becomes samahita, it becomes collected, concentrated. In other words, the mind goes into samadhi. And then the Buddha says, this is called a noble disciple who dwells in balance, or who dwells, you could say, evenly amidst an unbalanced or uneven population, who dwells unafflicted amidst an unafflicted population, as one who has entered the stream of the Dhamma. One develops in this way recollection of the Buddha. And then he goes on to explain recollection of the Dhamma, recollection of the Sangha, using the same formula. So that is the basic structure that we'll be following. And so now what we're going to be doing in the first session will be recollection of the Buddha. And so this is calling to mind the qualities, the noble qualities of the Buddha. And it's usually expressed in there's a formula with 9 terms. But since we only have a half an hour, I'm not going to go through all 9 of them, but we're just going to use 3 of them. And so the 3 that we're going to use will be Arahant. Excuse me. Arahang Buddho Bhagava. And so the meaning, the way I see these 3 terms, that they sort of capture the essential qualities of the Buddha. So the term Arahang, which can be translated worthy one, holy one, but the word Arahang was used during the Buddha's time. It's not specific to Buddhism. It was in circulation even before the Buddha appeared on the scene. But in the Buddha's framework of the Buddha's teaching, the Arahat is one who has destroyed all of the mental defilements, uprooted them completely from the stream of the mind, so that the mind is completely pure. So the Arahat is a purified one. So that is the first quality of the Buddha, is complete purity of the mind. And by reason of that purification of the mind, the Arahat is one who is completely liberated from the cycle of repeated birth and death. So we could take Arahat also to be the liberated one. Then Buddha suggests that's what we translate the enlightened one or the awakened one. That is the one who has penetrated the ultimate truths, the ultimate nature of existence. And that entails or implies the quality of wisdom, the wisdom of the Buddha, the complete understanding of the true nature of all dharmas, of all phenomena. And then the third quality is Bhagava, which is often translated, because we don't have a good translation for it, so we render it blessed one. But I don't understand this to mean that somebody has blessed the Buddha, but rather I see this as the Buddha as the source of all blessings for the world. And the reason why the Buddha can function as a source of all blessings is through his great compassion. So we say that the Buddha has fulfilled over countless aeons, many, many lives, all of the paramis or paramitas, the spiritual perfections, to arrive at the state of Buddhahood. And what motivated the Buddha to fulfill the paramitas was his great compassion. And by reason of that compassion, he becomes Bhagavat, the Blessed One. Okay, so we'll be using these three qualities, just turning them, going through them again and again in the mind, trying, as we're practicing, trying. You don't have to make an effort to let the joy arise, but just contemplate the qualities and strengthen what I call the element of devotion. And that is what brings the joy up. So we do this through the attitude of reverence, strengthening to veneration, to, I'll use some strong words, adoration and devotion towards the Buddha. And as you do this, reverence, veneration, adoration, and devotion, then naturally they'll start, some warmth should begin in the heart, and the warmth may go stronger and stronger and then turn into that kind of uplifting joy. And don't worry if your mind is not pervaded by this ecstatic bliss, because here we're just sort of taking some elementary steps in this practice. And for that ecstatic bliss to emerge, one often has to do like a long-term extended practice over many days. But we're taking a step in that direction. And so just give it a try, sort of put one's worries, concerns, anxieties aside, and just sort of immerse oneself in this practice. And so we'll try doing a session, maybe about 30 minutes. And this will be a guided meditation, so I'll guide you through the qualities. Okay, so take your congenial sitting posture. And it can be should be a fairly comfortable posture. Keep the back straight and upright. Keep the back straight and upright, but not stiff or rigid. We let the weight of the body drop from the shoulders. We will keep the hands in the lap, one, one hand over the other with the thumbs lightly touching. Or if you prefer, you could have your hands on the knees or the thighs. Close the mouth. And for this, you would close the eyes. At first, we just do a couple of minutes of mindful breathing, just to settle the mind and stabilize the mind. But don't do a highly focused mindfulness of breathing, but simply be mindful of the body in the sitting position and simply be aware of the body breathing in and breathing out. And then you can bring to mind some image of the Buddha. If you have a favorite image, you could bring that image to mind. You don't have to be able to visualize in detail, but just enough to get the mental impression that you are in the presence of the Buddha, that the Buddha is in front of your mind's eye. And now we are going to be practicing the recollection of the Buddha, so often recommended by the Buddha himself. So we bring to mind that the Buddha, first of all, is Arahang. the worthy one, the one who has completely eliminated all the defilements of the mind, all greed, craving, hatred, anger, ignorance, delusion, the one whose mind, stream of mind, is completely purified. The Buddha as the Arahant, the purified one. And in the silence, you could mentally turn over the word. You could use the Pali word arahang, 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 or you can use worthy one, worthy one, worthy one, or purified one, purified one, purified one. You just keep on turning the word over while sustaining that light mental image of the Buddha before your mind's eye. Next, the Buddha is Buddho, the enlightened one, the awakened one, the one who has dispelled, completely dispelled the darkness of ignorance, who has awakened to the ultimate liberating truths, the one who has arrived at the supreme wisdom. So the Buddha as Buddho, the enlightened one, or if you prefer, the awakened one. Next, we take the Buddha as Bhagava, which is translated as the Blessed One, but I prefer to see this as the Buddha as the source of boundless blessing, the one whose waves of great loving kindness and compassion spread out across the world, bringing blessings to all those who take refuge in him and to venerate them in the depths of their hearts. To bring to mind the Buddha as Bhagava, the source of boundless blessings. And now we go back to the beginning. The Buddha is Arahant, the worthy one, the one worthy of the veneration of the world, because his mind has been purified of all the defilements, and he's thereby liberated from the cycle of repeated birth and death. So Buddha as the Arahant, the purified one, the liberated one. And as you bring that quality to mind, just let the veneration and the respect and veneration arise in the heart. Next, the Buddha is Buddho, the enlightened one, the awakened one, the one who has fully understood and penetrated the ultimate liberating truths about the nature of existence, and who has proclaimed those truths to the world to enlighten and awaken the world. So Buddha as the enlightened one, the awakened one, the one who has arrived at the supreme wisdom. Okay, next we bring to mind the Buddha as Bhagava, the one who is the source of boundless blessings, inspired by his great compassion for the world. And as you're bringing the quality of Bhagava to mind, again, allow that respect and veneration to emerge in the heart. Okay, now you can use these three qualities on your own. So I won't give further guidance, but you just take them in sequence and you can dwell on each as long as you wish, just moving from Arahant, the worthy one, purified and liberated, then to Buddho, the enlightened one or awakened one, to Bhagava, the blessed one who's the source of blessings for the world. Just keep on circulating them in your own heart. And as you dwell on each, let that feeling of admiration and veneration arise in the heart. And when you feel comfortable having dwelt on one of those qualities, and move on to the next one. Just keep the three of them turning. Okay, now you can let go of all the mental formulations and you bring the mindfulness back to the body in the sitting position. And then you can take a couple of deep mindful breaths, breathing in and out, breathing in and out. And then you can mindfully open your eyes and end the session the way we usually end the session is to rub the palms together to create some warmth. And then you rub the warm palms over the face. And then come down the shoulder blades. And then to the lower back. The and to the buttocks. You can massage that area. Massage that area to stimulate the circulation. And then come down to the knees. And again, you could put some pressure on the knees. And then those sitting cross-legged will come to the feet and the toes. Yeah, I think we're supposed to have a session of the walking meditation, but I didn't ask about the logistics of how is that to be done around here? Is there a walking area?
That means there's a park about Daylong.
Yeah, we only have
How many?
about 15 minutes. Can people walk on the street up and down, but without looking?
It's the residential area. This will be about maybe half a block
Yeah.
because in the street it's so busy. You see a file of people walking.
Yeah, no, we can't walk in a file.
There's a parking lot right here. There's a parking lot right here attached to
But
it.
there is a parking lot.
So, well, but that's
Oh, I see the parking lot of this place.
adjacent to our parking.
Oh, no, that.
Yeah, I didn't really,
I don't think that's a business.
I didn't look around carefully enough to see where we could do
Do the walking in the parking lot.
I think this
is the house is like
individual.
Yeah.
maybe people just go out and try to find
Yes.
wherever you can find a place where you could walk 20 paces, just do mindful walking. I guess it doesn't matter if you're doing it really slow here. People might look and think they're a little curious, but let them. Okay. Okay, so the way they do the walking meditation, we're not going to be doing the extremely slow walking meditation because that will look rather strange out in the street. But walk at a fairly slow, normal pace. Choose an area where you could walk, say, 20 steps. And just simply mindfully attending to the steps is right, left, right, left. Paying special attention to the feeling of the pressure as you're putting the foot onto the ground. So we'll do this just for about 15 minutes, then we'll come back for the second session. So everybody just try to find their little turf for doing 20 paces back and forth of walking meditation. And I'll keep the timer and then I'll try to signal to everybody to get round up. Maybe Jay could help me if there are people are spread out, then you could go to another section. sure that everybody gets. Okay. And in the text, there's a certain formula given for recollection of the Dhamma, which goes that the Dhamma is well expounded by the Blessed One, directly visible, immediate, inviting one to come and see, applicable, to be personally experienced by the wise. I find this rather lengthy and a little bit abstract. So the way I found to do it is just to take the idea of the Dhamma being well expounded by the Blessed One, and then using a different description of the Dhamma that we often find in the suttas, which is that the Dhamma is good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. And then we consider what is meant by being good in the beginning. So here we would have the teachings on dana and sila, the teachings on generosity and ethical conduct. Good in the middle will be the teachings on the training and purification of the mind, the practice of the four foundations of mindfulness, and development of samadhi or concentration. And then good in the end is the teachings on the development of insight, the Buddha's teachings on like the three characteristics and the Four Noble Truths and liberation. So we don't have to take all of those details, but we say good in the beginning, the teachings on generosity and virtuous conduct, good in the middle, the teachings on mental purification and on mental purification and concentration, good in the end, the teachings on wisdom and liberation. You don't have to dwell on all of these teachings, but just enough to have the idea of good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. And then you sort of add your own elaborations to this. So we'll do this. And I'm not experienced in doing this as a lengthy meditation. Usually when I add this into my sessions, I just do like short sessions of 10 minutes or so. So we'll do like about 10 minutes of recollection of the Dhamma, and then we'll do a short 10 minutes of recollection of the Sangha. Okay, so again, you take your congenial sitting position. And first, stabilize the mind, settle the mind, doing a couple of minutes of simple mindfulness of breathing. Now we are going to be practicing the Dhammanusati, recollection of the Dhamma. And we use as the takeoff phrase, Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo. The Dhamma is well expounded by the Blessed One, by the Buddha. And when we're doing this recollection, the key is to try to develop at least the seeds of that joy, since we turn to this well-expounded Dhamma as our refuge, as our guidance through the labyrinth of life. And so we want to experience and arouse that joy and delight in the heart, that this is what we have looked to for our refuge, our source of clarity, our source of understanding, the guidelines to our practice. And so we revere and venerate that well-expounded Dhamma, which is good in the beginning because of its beautiful teachings on generosity and virtuous conduct, ethical conduct. And then just let your mind dwell for a minute or so on the idea of good in the beginning through those teachings on generosity and virtuous conduct. You contemplate how beautiful, wonderful those teachings are. And as you do so, try to let bubbles of joy and happiness arise in the heart. The Dhamma is good in the middle. Through the teachings on the four foundations of mindfulness, all the different systems of meditation that lead to the unification of the mind, that culminate in samadhi. So the Dhamma is good in the middle. Or you could bring to mind the path factors of right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Good in the middle. Dhamma is good in the end. Through its teachings that lead to wisdom, the teachings of dependent origination, the three marks of existence, the Four Noble Truths, and the fruits of realization and liberation. So the teaching, the Dhamma, is good in the end through the teachings of insight, wisdom, realization, and liberation. And again, you could bring that to mind in any way that you find that works for you. But just when you bring it to mind, do so with an attitude of reverence and veneration for the Dhamma, and then letting those bubbles of joy and happiness arise in the mind. Do another cycle. The Dhamma is well expounded by the Blessed One, the Buddha, in that it is good in the beginning. There was beautiful teachings on generosity and on virtuous conduct. Conduct guided by the five precepts and other ethical principles. So bring those qualities of giving and virtuous conduct to mind, and then rejoice in the Dhamma as good in the beginning. The Dhamma is good in the middle through the teachings of the four foundations of mindfulness, that lead to mental purification, or you could contemplate the Dhamma good in the middle through the path factors of right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Choose whatever themes you find work for you and just rejoice in the Dhamma. It's good in the middle. And then the Dhamma is good in the end through its teachings of wisdom, the teachings that lead to wisdom, to realization of the ultimate truth, and to the fruits of liberation. So just bring to mind the idea of the Dhamma as good in the end, with an attitude of reverence and veneration, trying to let little bubbles of joy arise in the heart and bubble up to the surface. And now we're going to slide into Sangha recollection of the Sangha. And here by the Sangha, what we'll be taking is not the existing order of monastic order existing at present, But we take the sort of idealized Aryan Sangha, particularly the Sangha of the Arahants, of the fully liberated disciples, the Bhikkhu disciples descending from Sariputta, Moggallana, Ananda Mahakashyapa, the Bhikkhuni disciples like Mahapajapati, Kema, Upalavanna, Kisagotami, but don't take individually, but we take the whole Sangha community. And then we have 4 phrases in the salutation or recollection of the Sangha. And I correlate these with the 4 virtues, 4 excellent qualities. So we have Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho, the Blessed One's community of disciples is practicing well. So I correlate that with their observance of Sila, their observance of the precepts or the discipline, the monastic discipline. Then we have Ujupatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho. The community of disciples is of upright practice, of straight practice. So I connect that with their possession of samadhi, that is deep concentration. Then we have Nyaya Patipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho, the disciples, the Blessed One's community of disciples is practicing the true way. I correlate that with their endowment with wisdom. And then we have Samichi Patipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho, the disciple, the Blessed One's community of disciples is practicing the proper way, which I connect with their possession of liberation. So I'll make it simple by saying, we'll do it this way. Bring to mind the Aryan Sangha, the Buddha's order of disciples, community of disciples who have reached the final fruit of the spiritual life. The attainment of arhatship. And that community of the Blessed One's disciples is endowed with sila, with virtuous, disciplined conduct, restrained by the regulations of the Vinaya, the code of discipline. You bring to mind the Sangha, sort of visualizing, if you have a visual mind, community of bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, wearing the ochre robe or saffron robe or orange robe. And contemplate them through the lens of their sila, their virtuous conduct. And as you do so, try to bring up a mind of reverence and veneration and joy. And the Blessed One's community of disciples is possessed of samadhi, mastery of the mind, deep concentration of the mind. The Blessed One's community of disciples is endowed with wisdom, with the insight into the true nature of phenomena. Panya or prajna. And the Blessed One's community of disciples has attained to liberation, vimukti, the liberation of the mind from all the kilesas or defilements, attained to liberation from the round of repeated birth and death. And you bring the community of liberated bhikkhus and bhikkhunis to mind with reverence and veneration, letting the bubbles of joy arise in the heart. You can do another cycle. The community of the Blessed One's disciples is endowed with sila, with virtuous conduct, conduct that conforms to the Vinaya, the code of monastic discipline. Community of the Blessed One's disciples is endowed with samadhi, unification of mind, deep concentration. The Blessed One's community of disciples is endowed with panya or prajna, with penetrative wisdom, insight, wisdom. And then the community of the Blessed One's disciples is endowed with liberation, has attained the highest fruit of liberation from all the mental afflictions, defilements. So bringing to mind the community of disciples, liberated disciples, you let the bubbles of joy arise in the heart. Okay, now you let go of all the mental formulation and you bring the mindfulness back to the body in the sitting position. And then you can take a couple of deep mindful breaths in and out, in and out. And then you can open your eyes and we end the session the usual way. We rub these palms together, create some warmth, and then we rub the warm palms over the face. Then to the back of the neck, the shoulder blades, then the lower back, then down to the buttocks, massage that area. And then to the knees, and then to the feet. I see now it's time to take the break for lunch. And I see the next session is supposed to start at 2 o'clock, but what I thought we could do, we could maybe come together at 1:30, and then if there's any questions that have arisen out of the morning sessions, we could take those questions. Is that okay? Okay, so then we do 3 bows to the Buddha to end the session. And people are taking the lunch here. So it's a okay, so for this afternoon session, we will be doing 2 of the so-called Brahma-vihara meditations. The Brahma-vihara means divine dwellings, sublime states. Also, they're known as I think the Chinese use the expression Wu Liang Xin. Is that it?
Wu, second tone.
Yeah.
亮 fourth tone.
Wu Liang
心
Xin. Wu Liang Xin.
亮
Wu Liang Xin.
亮
Okay.
心这一声，
对啊，所以医生是屁。
I'll go back to my saxophone lesson. Okay, so in the Chinese use the equivalent of the Pali uppamanya. These are the measureless mind, because the ideal is to spread these qualities to all sentient beings. And so we'll be doing 2 of them because we're focusing on the joy aspect. The compassion aspect, you're focusing on the suffering of beings, and that could sometimes pull the mind down. So we want to lift the mind up happily. So we'll start with the loving kindness, and probably many of you are already familiar with this, but I will do it the way I do on my Wednesday evenings, sort of a guided meditation. Again, take a comfortable sitting position.
Okay. You say you want to do a Q&A?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Oh, wow. I'm so unmindful. Maybe I should be sitting down here. Somebody. Terrible. Send me back to New York. Yeah, this is something.
the time yet.
I guess I was thinking, how am I going to present the meditations this afternoon? Okay, so this is a session for questions and answers on anything that came out from the morning session.
Okay. What are the reasons of cycling through 3 or 10 qualities instead of focusing on one? And then I have a related question. Let's say our mind is slowly attracted to one quality.
Yeah.
Can we concentrate on that?
Okay, so this, you mean when doing a recollection of the Buddha?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then chant a verse silently in our mind relates to that.
Okay, that's a good question. So the question is, why do we go through when the Buddha mentions 9 epithets or designations of the Buddha? And in the traditional way of practicing, one begins by going through all 9 of them. And so first, the advantage of going through all 9 is that it helps one to get a sort of extensive appreciation of the qualities of the Buddha. And I used to compare this to if you go to one of these ice cream shops in which they have multiple flavors of ice cream. And so you don't just want to get one flavor of ice cream, so you come with a kind of dish, like a plate, and then you ask for like 9 different flavors. You can get not big scoops, but you get a little like spoon, sample spoon of chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, pineapple, coconut, coffee flavor,
Butter brickle.
butter brickle, something named that. Anyway, you have 9 flavors of ice cream, And then you get to appreciate the ice cream to 9 different flavors. But this is a more serious thing. You get to see different aspects of the Buddha through which the early compilers of the text sort of revered and admired and respected the Buddha. So we start off with 9, and that's the general procedure. But because we just had a short period this morning, so I just whittled it down to 3. But the way I would suggest for somebody who's doing like a long-term practice of Buddhanussati, really aiming to develop stronger samadhi, you start off with the 9, you get acquainted with them, and then you find out of the 9, certain ones have more resonance with the mind, others less resonance. So you drop 6 of them. So if we whittle it down to 3, and then you work with 3 for a while till you explore those 3, then out of the 3, you can choose the one that has the strongest resonance and just focus on that one quality. But then sometimes you might want to, after working with one for a while, if you find that the mind is getting a bit dry and finding the practice becoming a bit tedious, then you could expand it back to the 9, then again go down to the 3, then again go down to the 1. Or if you're doing like a special, like long-term, say, retreat on the qualities of the Buddha, you start off on the first day doing 9. Yeah, I actually think one of my teachers in Sri Lanka had me do it that way, if I remember correctly, back in the 1980s. That you start off with 9, then you do a whole session just on one quality, say a whole morning just on Arahant, then the afternoon Sama Sambuddho, then the next day the whole morning just on Vijacharana Sampanno, the afternoon on Sugato, and then in that way going through all 9 qualities. So it's something that you play around with according and find what works. One treats it in a pragmatic way.
Does the same principle kind of applies to the homage you have us chanting those Pali chants?
When doing the chanting,
Uh-huh.
when doing the chanting, we always do the 9 qualities.
Talking about which on Wednesday, during the Wednesday meditation class, you always have us chant the Pali text,
Yeah.
those chants. So what are the benefits of chanting those in Pali text? What are the benefits? You know, the homage to the
Yeah,
Buddha,
yeah.
homage to the
Dhamma,
Dhamma,
homage.
homage to Sangha,
Yeah.
and 3 jewels.
Yeah,
Yeah, you have us chanting Pali.
yeah.
So I'm just asking, is that just a refresher for us, or what are the benefits of starting off with this chanting?
Oh, I see. Of beginning the meditation with the
Yes.
chanting. Well, it's sort of traditional in Buddhist monasteries, like always to have, like the morning session will begin, the monks will assemble in the assembly hall, and then they'll do the chanting. This is called the morning vandana. I think this is called Xiao Ke, is that it?
早课，
Xiao Ke,
早课，早安，早课，
Xiao Ke,
Lesson, morning lesson.
Xiao Ke.
Ke.
And then you have Wan Ke,
One.
Wan
One.
Ke, Wan Ke. Sounds like I'm doing it perfectly. Wan Ke. Okay, so look, this is a standard routine in the monasteries to have the morning chanting and evening chanting. And so when we start Wednesday, we start with the evening chanting.
Hard. If
It's
people
hard?
doesn't learn Pali, then it will be hard to recite. So
Well, it's good to practice on one own. If you do it every day, then you get familiar with it until you could do it very easily. So you're saying it's hard to do in Pali. I'm thinking it's hard to me to do one. Xiao. Yeah. Or is it Xiao? Third tone. Xiao.
Shout.
Zhao.
Yes.
That, oh, of course. Zhao, not Xiao. Zhao. Okay. Zhao. No, no, I see the problem. Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
So Monday.
Oh, okay.
So my question is that does the same principle that we just explained for Dhamma, sorry, Buddha, you said also apply to the other two, meaning Dhamma and Sangha and Sangha. Sorry.
Dhammanicity and Sanghanicity. As I mentioned, like, I'm not so experienced in using those as primary meditation objects. So the way I've done them, just sometimes when doing like a primary meditation of practice, like mindfulness of breathing, and then sometimes I just want to use the analogy that I used in the morning when having the dish of yogurt, to put some honey into it to sort of soften up the practice a bit. Then I would sometimes just do like 10 minutes of recollection of the Dhamma, and then on another occasion, maybe 10 minutes recollection of the Sangha, just using them as short meditations. So in that case, I do it just in the way that I explained this morning, because it's just for the recollection of the Dhamma, taking the Dhamma is good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. So you want to get that complete picture. And then also with recollection of the Sangha, you want to get those four, well, these excellent qualities of the noble Sangha, endowed with Sila, Samadhi, Anya, and Vibhuti. Good conduct, concentration, wisdom, and liberation. You don't want to just focus on one or another of them. Yeah. You want to learn how to do it as like a main or primary practice, then you would have to find somebody who uses one of those recollections. But I haven't used it in that way. Anybody else?
This goes back to the yesterday. So you mentioned the Dhammapada. What version or translation do you recommend for the Dhammapada?
There are many translations of the Dhammapada. So one that's sort of very accurate in a scholarly way is by K.R. Norman. It's published by the Pali Text Society. The problem with his title, the way it's done by the Pali Text Society, is that I think it's published under the English title that they've assigned to it. So I think it's called Words of the Dhamma. So if you're looking for the Dhammapada through the Pali Text Society, maybe you don't find it. Because in the catalog, it's listed under the title Word of the Dhamma or Words of the Dhamma, something like that. So K.R. Norman is a bit dry, but what the reason why I like this translation, from my standpoint, because I know Pali and I'm concerned about the precise meaning of terms, like about 2/3 of the book are his back notes, where he'll explain complex, sometimes unusual words and terms. But there are some other translations which are maybe more readable. There's one that you can easily find on the internet. This is by Acharya Buddharakkhita. Or you say just Buddharakkhita should be enough. And I think this is available on Access to Insight. And it's simply look for the Dhammapada. And then there's another one which is popular by Gil Fronsdale, who lives maybe just in one of the surrounding towns here. And also, I think it's published just under the title, the Dhammapada. Avoid is one by somebody done in the 1970s, Thomas Byron. Avoid that one because it's very, very free. It became popular maybe amongst people in the hip generation of the 1970s. I don't know why, but it was so free that when you compare with the Pali, I could hardly recognize.
Would you recommend audiobook?
If you like audiobooks, then you can use audiobooks.
What's so funny?
No, I said I'm an old timer, so I could. In fact, audiobooks are some way more old timer than reading books. Since in ancient times, people would listen to the recitation rather than reading on a piece of paper.
You can learn those Pali words, the pronunciation.
Oh, you mean to listen to an audio recitation of the Pali? Yeah, it's very good if you could find it. Probably even on YouTube, you could probably find recitation. I wouldn't be surprised. Especially if you want to get pronunciation from either a Sri Lankan monk or Indian cider. Because the Thais have so the Pali gets pronounced through the lens of the Thai language. So sounds are different from that of the original Pali. And the Burmese, I have to say, the pronunciation of Pali is just so different that sometimes when I'm listening to Burmese monks recite a Pali sutta that I'm completely familiar with, I have to listen very closely, and it takes me a couple of minutes to figure out what they're reciting. Yeah, because they turn, like we say, Buddham Saranam Gacchami. They will say, Buddham, let's see how, Buddham Karunam Gisami. So the sound values are different. But Sri Lanka, because it's derived from Indian language, so the pronunciation is close. Okay, any further questions? Okay, then I think we can just go into our practice. Yeah. Okay, so then take a comfortable seat. Okay, so we can make this a 40-minute session for loving kindness meditation. And then settle the mind by doing a few rounds of mindful breathing. So the way we do the loving kindness is by using different people and groups of people. And I'm going to mention the different people, groups of people. And then I'll be pausing when I mention each group, each person, group of people, then I pause for a few minutes. And in that pause, you'll use the phrases that I'll be suggesting, turning them over in the mind to try to generate from the heart the feeling expressed by those phrases. And so we start off, sometimes it's a little bit artificial, since you're just mentally verbalizing the phrases, but you don't want to just be reciting the phrases mentally, but the challenge or the task is to actually experientially feel the wish being expressed by that phrase. Okay, now set up mindfulness in the body, being mindful of the body in the sitting posture. And then you bring the mindfulness down to the region around the heart, to the center of the chest. And you settle the mind there, looking for a kind of soft, warm, gentle feeling to emerge in that region. And we each begin by developing loving kindness towards ourself. So we have to use ourself as the standard for developing loving kindness to others. And so towards yourself, you develop or you generate the wish. These are the phrases. May I be well. That means may I be healthy, healthy in body and in mind. May I be happy, really, truly happy. May I be safe, safe from all dangers. May all my good aims in life be fulfilled. So those are the four phrases. May I be well. May I be truly happy. May I be safe. And may all my good aims be fulfilled. And now you work with those phrases, turning them over in your mind, trying to generate from the heart the actual feeling expressed by those wishes. And you could use the phrases whatever way you find effective. Could use all four of them or any selection from among them. Okay, now we'll move to the next stage. And now you take a few people who are dear and close to yourself. These could be the members of your immediate family or some very close friends. And to make it simple, you just take a few people. Don't try to take all of your friends in. You could just take, say, 3, 4, 5 people. And you could go through them individually or take them as a group. And then from the heart base, you generate the wish. May my dear ones be well. May they be truly, deeply happy. May they be safe from all dangers. And may all of their good aims be fulfilled. All their good aims in life be fulfilled. Okay, now you work with those phrases on your own in silence. Okay, now we're going to expand the range of the loving kindness. You each take everybody else who's in this meditation hall right now, or in this Mahabodhi center right now. So all the fellow meditators, whether you've known them before or not, but you see that each of them is a person just like yourself, coming to the Dharma with the same quest to find wisdom, happiness, peace, inner freedom. And so collectively taking all of the meditators in this center right now, we generate the wish, may all my fellow meditators in the center, may they all be well, healthy. May they all be truly happy. May they all be safe from any dangers. And may all of their good aims in life be fulfilled. We just take everybody in the center into the range of your mind and direct those beautiful thoughts to them. Okay, now we move to the next level. Now you take the people in your neighborhood, people around in the streets where you live. You decide for yourself what range you want to choose. But just see the neighborhood where you're living and people in the various houses or apartments. Maybe you just see them as faces that you pass in the streets. But behind those faces, there's a personality, an individual, a real person. And so you generate the wish, may all of the people in my neighborhood be well. May they all be truly happy. May they be safe from all danger. And may all of their good aims in life be fulfilled. Okay, now you're going to expand the range of the loving kindness to the entire population of the United States. So now you have to take some 380 million people into the range of your mind. So you just take them all collectively, but you can see that all of these millions and millions of people, that they're all people, persons just like yourself, each one with their own life, their likes, dislikes, their loved ones, their desire to live, to have a meaningful, fulfilling life. And then on that basis, you use the phrases that I mentioned, use them in whatever way you're finding effective to develop loving kindness to the entire population of the United States. And now you expand the loving kindness to take in the entire human population of the earth. Now you have to spread the loving kindness to about 8 billion people in every country, every continent, recognizing that they're all, you can see them just as being your mothers and fathers, or brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, just in different physical manifestations. And that way use your preferred phrases to send the loving kindness to the whole human population. And now we shift our focus from human beings to the animals. You might start with some animals that you like, such as maybe dogs or cats, or rabbits or deer, and then spread the loving kindness to all the animals who are also sentient beings like ourselves. So generate the wish, may all of the animals be well. May they all be truly happy. And may they be safe from all dangers. And finally, without any distinctions, you spread the loving kindness to all sentient beings throughout the universe, just using whatever phrases you prefer, generating the wish, may all beings be well, may all beings be happy, may they all be safe from harm, and may all their good aims be fulfilled. Okay, now you can let go of all the mental formulations and thought constructions. And you bring the mindfulness back to the body in the sitting position. Simply being mindful of sitting. And then take a couple of mindful breaths, deep mindful breaths in and out. In and out. And then you can open your eyes and end the session the usual way. Rub the palm. And then you massage the face, back of the neck, shoulder blades, down the lower back, over the kidneys, and then to the buttocks, and massage that area to stimulate the circulation. And then the knees and the feet and the toes. Okay, so we could do another session of the walking meditation. And I noticed that even though this is the main avenue, I think is very busy, but the side street here is pretty quiet. So I think people can do the walking meditation on the side street as well as the other places, the parking lot. So everybody knows how to do the walking meditation. Okay, so testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Sound is okay in the back. Okay. Okay, so now we're moving from the first Brahmavihara, Metta Bhavana, to the third Brahmavihara. This is Mudita. Mudita, different translations. The old translation was sympathetic joy. I think more recently I've been using altruistic joy. And this is rejoicing in the happiness and good fortune of others. And there are two ways to do this. One is what I call the relatively mundane type of mudita, rejoicing in any kind of wholesome, not unwholesome types of happiness, but we could ordinary, good, but insignificant in the long run, mundane happiness. The other is more like rejoicing in the spiritual virtues and excellent qualities of others. We're going to do primarily in this session, we call the mundane type of mudita. So I'll be describing some, and the way I learned to develop this over the years ago, is to take some photos from the internet of people in joyful situations, and I would use them, I would sort of look at them with a flash with my eyes, then close the eyes and share the joy and happiness. So we don't have a screen projector here, so I'm going to describe the scene. And it's probably better because that way you keep your eyes closed. And then you sort of imagine the scene that I described very briefly, and then rejoice in the happiness of the people involved.
When people win the jackpot, is that considered, they win the jackpot, is that considering?
No, not winning the jackpot at a lottery or something like this.
There are children playing basketball right up there. Did you see them bobbling the ball on the way back?
Yeah, that's what I mean. That could be one of the scenes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
But I'll give myself the special if I can find it. So that I can have the visual impressions myself. Okay, got it. Okay, so take your, well, everybody's already in their congenial sitting positions. They could be done in a very relaxed position. This is not like the Vipassana meditation, striving, exerting oneself with all one's might, but it should be a kind of soft, gentle, pleasant meditation. Okay, so sit and again bring the mindfulness into the body. And let the mindfulness go to the region of the heart, around the heart. And settle into that warm, soft, gentle feeling that emerges in the heart. Okay, so we're going to be developing the mudita brahmavihara, the divine dwelling of altruistic joy, rejoicing in the happiness of others. And so now you imagine each of the scenes that I described. Okay, here we have a group of school children. Maybe they are about 7 and 8 years old. It seems they're playing some game together. I see white children, brown skinned children, black children, all playing together very happily, without any sense of discrimination, but just rejoicing in their game together. So you could imagine that you were one of the children, having a happy time with the game. Or you could imagine that you are a parent, sort of looking over the group of children while they're playing the game out on the playing field. Just rejoice in the idea or the image of a group of young children, 7, 8 years old, playing together happily without any care in the world. Just try to let little bubbles of joy arise in the heart and rise up to the surface of the heart. Okay, the next scene is also a childhood scene. Okay, so this is a birthday party for children. And the children look again like they're about 7, 8 years old. There's one boy in the middle, seems he's the birthday boy. And there are a couple of boys, a couple of girls, whether they're friends, cousins, I don't know. But there is, in front of them, there is some birthday cake, some soda drinks, some balloons in the background, and they're singing happy birthday to the birthday boy. And if you find it helpful, you could even artificially put a smile on your face to help you rejoice in the scene. So imagine you are a parent looking at the scene of the children celebrating the birthday together. And you're rejoicing to see the children so happy. Then I describe the next scene. Here it looks like a group of high school students, maybe 4 high school students in a circle, and in the middle is their teacher. It's a female teacher, and the students, 2 girls in the front, 2 boys in the back, and they're all hugging the teacher, their high school teacher. And they're all smiling together. Apparently, the students love the teacher, and the teacher loves her students. Just imagine that scene in your mind's eye. Maybe it's the end of the school year. So these are the top students of the teacher, and they're so appreciative of each other. So imagine that joyful scene and share the joy of the teacher and the joy of these students. Okay, now we come to the next scene, and this is a college graduation. There's a group of graduating college students, maybe about 10 students. They're wearing their black gowns, and this is when they complete the graduation ceremony. They throw the caps, the graduation caps, they throw them up in the air. So all the students are smiling, so happy that they've completed their 4 years of college, and now they're throwing the caps in the air, all rejoicing together with each other for completing their college education. So imagine that scene, and maybe you could imagine you are the parents of those graduating seniors, or you are one of them rejoicing with your fellow classmates. Share the joy and happiness. Again, let those little bubbles of joy, like when you're boiling water to make tea, little bubbles form at the bottom of the kettle and then rise up. And the key to the practice is to identify with the people that you're contemplating. like you are one of them, or that you're a relative, one of their relatives. Okay, in the next scene, we have a group of maybe 5 or 6 young people, maybe in their late 20s, and they've formed a startup company, maybe right here in Silicon Valley, with an office, and they just had a little party to celebrate the beginning of the startup company. And one of them has cut the ribbon at the entrance to the door, and they are maybe cutting a cake and holding up cups of coffee to celebrate. And so share in the happiness of this group of young people starting a new, maybe data processing company. I don't know what you have this like. They're starting their adventure of life. Now they completed all of their university education, their background training, ready to start this business. And maybe they've invited their parents or friends along to join the celebration. So maybe we could see even a gathering of maybe 20 people, 6 in the center of the team that's going to run the company. And the others are the friends and relatives who are joining the celebration. And again, you just put your mind into their minds, their heart, your heart into their hearts. Even though it's a worldly accomplishment, but you just share their joy at starting this business venture together. Okay, the next scene, here we have a young man and a young woman. Maybe they're in their late 20s, 26, 27, and it looks like their wedding photo. So they're posing for the photo. The man has his arm around his bride, and they've dressed very nicely, and they're smiling and very happy that each has deep love for the other, and now they're sealing their love through marriage. And again, you let your heart beat in sympathy with their hearts and rejoice in their happiness, even though we say it's a mundane, worldly happiness, but still, when people love each other and they can marry and form a bond with each other, then it's the basis for rejoicing. Okay, now we come to the next scene, and we have a man and a woman holding between them a little baby, maybe about, maybe might be about 6 months old. The baby is smiling, and the parents are looking at each other and at the baby, very happy that they have this little baby. And so you can, again, project your mind into the minds of the parents and rejoice with them that they've had their first child, a little baby. If you had children, then you can bring your mind back to that time when you had your first little child, and you were so happy to have that child. And then you can rejoice with everybody else who's rejoicing at having a little baby. Okay, the next scene, there's a little girl, maybe about 12 years old, and she has a pet dog. And the girl had been away at school, and now she comes home from school, maybe 3:30 in the afternoon. When she comes into the house, the little dog is so happy that the girl has come home that the dog jumps up into the arms of the little girl, and the little girl is holding her pet dog in her arms, and the dog is licking the cheek of the little girl. So rejoice in that happiness of the little girl and also the happiness of the dog. Being rejoined with the little girl after an absence of maybe the girl had gone away for a week and now has come back. Okay, another scene, and this is a family scene. And so I imagine we have the mother and the daughter. The daughter looks like about 6, 7 years old. The mother maybe in her early 30s. And the grandmother, the mother and the daughter are living on the east coast of the United States. The mother lives on the west coast, but the mother or the grandmother lives on the west coast. And the grandmother has flown over to the east coast to join her daughter and granddaughter. And they're sitting together in the living room. And they're all smiling and taking a selfie photo together. Grandmother, maybe in her early 60s. Mother, maybe in her early 30s. Daughter, looking about 6 or 7. So they're so happy to be enjoying their time together. We now will give it a more spiritual orientation. So let's imagine a scene where there are three women who have just taken bhikkhuni ordination. Three women following, say, the Theravada tradition, where the bhikkhuni ordination had been absent for many years. Now they've managed to arrange to take the ordination. They trained for 2 years, and now they've gone through this particular day, they've gone through the ordination procedure, and the ordination has just concluded. Maybe their friends and parents are in the watching in the audience, as well as their lay supporters. And the ceremony is finished, and sort of they stand up and they come out of the assembly hall, and everybody is congratulating them. And you're congratulating them as well, and sharing their joy to know that now they've fully entered into the Bhikkhuni Sangha. Maybe you've been one of their lay supporters for several years. You've shared their struggles, their sorrow, the difficulties, the obstacles they've met. But now all of that has fallen away, and now the ordination is complete, and everybody is so happy for them. So let the bubbles of joy arise at the base of the heart, and then rise up to the surface of the heart. Okay, the next scene, maybe there's an old monk, maybe in Sri Lanka or Thailand or Taiwan, who's reached his 85th birthday, and now all of his supporters and disciples have come together to celebrate his birthday. And maybe they've invited many other monks and nuns to attend the birthday celebration. And so they're all so joyful that they have this elderly monk, 85 years old, and that they're able to celebrate his birthday with him. And so rejoice in that scene. Now, this month, May, is the month of Vesak, of Visakha Purnima. And so throughout the world this month, on different days, people have been commemorating and celebrating the birth, the enlightenment and passing of the Buddha. And so let your mind spread over the whole world and rejoice in the joy of all of the people who have gathered in so many temples and monasteries to commemorate the main events in the life of the Buddha. Maybe bathing an image of the Buddha, making offerings to the Buddha, doing pujas and meditation, and just share and rejoice in their happiness. And if you participated this month in any Vesak celebration, then just recollect your own joy at that time and the joy of the people who are present with you at the celebration. And then finally, let your mind spread out over the whole world and think of people in every country who might be doing good activities, good, wholesome activities, whether following the Buddha Dharma or any other faith or no faith at all, people who are helping others, who are being kind to others, who are engaging in acts of generosity, charity, spiritual disciplines, and just rejoice in their roots of goodness. And then bring your mind now to all of the people in this room who through this day have practiced recollection of the Buddha, recollection of the Dhamma, recollection of the Sangha, then the loving kindness meditation, the walking meditation, and now the mudita meditation, and then rejoice in the achievements, the merits, the virtues of everybody who is joined in this meditation group today. And then rejoice in the merits and virtues of the people who are running the Mahabodhi Society here in Sunnyvale and who have arranged over several months for this little Dhamma retreat today. So rejoice in their merits and goodness. You can bring the mindfulness back to the body in the sitting position. Let go of all the thought formations. Take a couple of deep mindful breaths in and out, in and out. And then you can mindfully open your eyes and begin the session the usual way. I think we could have like 10 or 15 minutes of questions if anybody has questions.
In the Hawaiian tradition, you have a very short scripture. In the Hawaiian tradition,
Yeah.
you have a very short scripture that combine the metta practice with the non-self practice. So I wonder what you think of this practice.
I don't know it, so
Can I read it to you? A short translation.
Yeah.
See what you think. So it says something like, "Sons and daughters of Buddha, if all bodhisattvas practice Maitri,
okay, Maitri is the Sanskrit for metta.
he or she should be in an empty, free, and quiet place, using pure faith to take in all the Chitta Dharma.
To take in all the
Chitta Dharma, 心法.
Yeah.
Contemplating the upper and lower limbs of the body are all collection of tiny dust, the coming together of earth, water, fire, and wind element. Further reflect that inside each and every single tiny dust, all has empty space. This empty space all have the form of containment and acceptance.
All have the
form of containment and acceptance.
Go on.
Further holding on to the thought.
Yeah, how long is this passage?
It's almost done.
Okay, okay. Okay, go on.
Okay, further holding on to the thought, each tiny dust are pure and clear, outwardly like lapis lazuli, inwardly like purple gold, magnificent and wondrous, soft and fragrant. And last paragraph. Should also contemplate all the beings in the world, all limbs of each and every beings, all the tiny dust of each and every limb are also like this.
Yeah, I'm not sure I quite really picked it up so well. Yeah. I'd have to read it because it's not, the voice is not so clear. But anyway, maybe,
I'll show you later.
yeah, we could have like practical questions arising from the sessions here. Anybody, please feel welcome. Don't be afraid to ask them. Okay.
In meditation,
Yeah.
where should you focus your eyes at?
It's difficult walking outside. You have to make yourself. Yeah, yeah. Usually we look down, sort of like about, let's say, a yoke's length ahead, like about 2 yards ahead or so. Yeah,
When you stop, you look further down.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, it seems when I come to the end of the walkway, if I'm doing outside, then I would look out and then look down and then turn around.
Just observing you're walking, and I thought that's what happened, but I just want to confirm.
Yeah, because I have to make sure that there's not a car coming down and then it's over.
So for this section, Bande mentioned about my eyes, right? So when I close my eyes, I don't see anything.
Yeah, I'm thinking about seeing with the sort of with the imagination by the mind's eye. I mean, not with seeing with these eyes, but just visualizing the scene in one's, I say that one's mind's eye, that is in one's imagination.
What you can see it. So when I close my eyes, I just don't see anything. There's a whole something called
Well, yeah, even, well, I have the advantage because I have the photos in front of me. So I learned to do this by using the photos and then getting the mental image and then closing. But even if you don't have a good visual imagination, but still you could imagine the scene. Like if I say that there's a group of children, 4 or 5 children having a birthday party, even though you might not see this very clearly with a visual imagination, but you still have the idea of children celebrating, having a birthday celebration. So don't worry too much about whether you can clearly visualize the scene or not. Even just thinking about it, as long the important point is to get that sense of empathy, I think is the word, to feel, put your heart in the hearts of the people in the scene, or in the case of the children, maybe in the heart of the parents that might be looking at the children, enjoying a birthday party. Yeah, that is sort of what causes that resonance of the mudita, rejoicing with the happiness of others.
In the ever increasing circle of metta,
Yeah,
felt at some transition, I felt some resistance.
yeah,
Because I was thinking of particular people who are going through that in the large circle, non the teens.
yes.
How do I bless that?
Have to, because when you take the larger circle, there'll be some groups of people that you feel some,
The news.
yeah. I understand that, but you see, in the traditional way of explaining the development of the metta bhavana, you're supposed to go to start off with you start with yourself, then you go to dear people, then neutral people, then the hostile person. Yeah, but I skip the hostile person. So I say, at this stage, don't worry about the people that you have some resistance towards, resentment towards. Just take the whole group as a group. And you don't have to sort of let the mind dwell on those people that create some friction in the mind. But just step into the whole group and they'll get hit by it too.
But it's also a practice to specifically focus on people that you have
That you have
some,
aversion to it.
yes.
Yeah, but I don't suggest doing that in the initial stages. You sort of build up momentum by doing the dear persons, the neutral people. Like the way I explained on Wednesday, I say you start with yourself, then you take a few close people, then you take what I call the acquaintances, like your neighbors, maybe distant relatives, like second cousins. Then you could take people in your neighborhood, then people in the state, and then in the country. So just taking the whole group until you develop some kind of power of metta, then very cautiously you might bring in the people that you have some resentment towards. And also and then what I find is useful to do some reflection in order to build up the metta towards them. That, okay, they might be cruel, vicious, egotistical, narcissistic, vain, greedy, but I'm not mentioning any names. I'm not mentioning any names. But they're human beings, and maybe there's some deep hurt, sense of insecurity, real inner lack of self-esteem that motivates this kind of disagreeable, even this harmful behavior. And that could generate some compassion for them. It's hard, I know.
I have the happiness picture in my mind. I naturally will just like shake my body a little bit. Is that okay?
Yeah, to shift the body a little bit. Yeah, you can move the body. You don't have to. Yeah. Yeah, for this kind of meditation, you want to always be comfortable in the sitting position. Okay, so
So you can have that toward people living or passed away.
the mudita meditation or the loving kindness. Oh yeah, the loving kindness meditation they say should always be done to people who are still alive. What you can do for people who have passed away, like we can do meritorious deeds, and then we dedicate the merit to them or share the merit to them, which is a kind of expression of loving kindness. But that's different from the meditation because the meditation, we want to be wishing that person, as we know that person, to be well and happy and safe. And so the person still has to be alive
Time. At the present time.
at the present time.
Yeah.
I think somebody outside, are they trying to come in or maybe it looks like a post, maybe a delivery. But today is a Sunday, no?
No, sorry.
Today's Saturday. Yeah, but it look like they're holding a parcel.
Chilang is checking him out. Chilang is checking him out.
Okay. Okay, so any other questions?
Is there a reason to not do metta to somebody who's passed away?
Yeah, because you want to wish that person to be well and happy. And so the person as you know them. And so the person should still be alive. But I think you can do, I mean, that's what's said in the meditation manuals. And the case is given, this is in the Visuddhimagga. One monk was trying to do metta meditation to a particular person, using that person as the primary object. And they couldn't get the metta to be rolling. And so the monk went to his meditation teacher and said, I've been practicing and practicing and practicing, can't get the meditation to be going towards that person. Then the master said, is that person still alive? And the meditator said, I don't really know. And he sent word to the village, is so-and-so still alive? And then the word came, no, he passed away a week ago. Yeah, so that's what's said in the meditation manuals, but I think my assumption is that you could think of your, say, a loved one who has passed away, and you could extend the wish, may so-and-so, in whatever realm, whatever form you might be existing, may you be well, may you be happy. You could do that as a practice, maybe not as part of the systematic metta practice, but you could do that maybe as a kind of way of sharing merits. In fact, that's done, we say, Ida me nyati nang hotu sukita hantu nyate, or this is a Sri Lankan recitation. When people do some meritorious deeds, they do Ida me nyati nang hotu, may this merit be dedicated to my departed relatives. Sukita hantu nyateo, may my departed relatives be happy. So you can be wishing them to be happy. But when you're doing sort of the concentrated meditative form of metta, then the advice is always to choose people who are still alive.
And if people want to do their pets.
To pets who are alive? Yeah, you could do it. Of course, I mentioned you extend the loving kindness also to the animals. So pets are animals. Unless if you have a pet human being, then you can see a pet hungry ghost, there's a pet hungry ghost. Pet alligator, I guess you could. Yeah. Pet. I know somebody with a big pet tortoise, this big.
In Manga also say, don't do metta to the opposite sex.
Yeah, that's what's said in the Visuddhimagga.
Teacher,
Your
respectable teacher, or my grandpa.
Yeah, I have to say I don't really go along so much with that advice in the Visuddhimagga. What I would say is that I think you see that kind of meditation instruction has come down, bearing in mind like a young monk who's like early 20s, and he sees the goes on his alms round, and he sees the young girl in the village who comes out 17, 18 years old. Every day she offers him some rice and some alms food. And so then he goes back to his room and he's practicing loving kindness. He thinks, who should I choose as my loving kindness? And oh, that village girl who was offering me the rice every day, very pretty girl. Sorry, my loving kindness. Before long, the meditation is gone, the monk's life is gone. And then the other monks are doing mudita for the newly married couple. So I think as long as one is not choosing somebody to whom one has a sort of romantic attachment or attraction, then it's okay. Yeah. Okay, so maybe we should end the session and we could end with a Maha sharing of the merits. And so we have to appreciate the merits of all of the people from connected with the Mahabodhi Center here in Sunnyvale who arranged this Dhamma gathering today, even from yesterday, today, and then tomorrow evening there'll be another talk. And the people who did the food preparation, and also rejoicing in the merits of all the participants who came and dedicated a full Saturday and practiced very diligently. And so we share the merits with them, and then we will share the merits with the Dhamma protecting devas, the Nagas or dragon spirits, and with all beings throughout the universe. So I'll recite the verses, and while I'm reciting, then in your mind you could be sort of like sharing the rays of merits with them, inviting them to rejoice in your virtues and merits. Akasata Jabumata Deva Naga Mahedika Punyanta Manumoditva Shirang Rakantu Sasanam Akasata Jabumata Deva Naga Mahedika Punyanta Manumoditva Shirang Rakantu Desanam Akasata Jabumata Deva Naga Mahedika Punyanta Manumoditva Chirang Rakantu Mang Parang Dukha Patajani Dukha Bhaya Patajani Bhaya Soka Patajani Soka Antu Sabe Pipanino. By virtue of our merits of this practice, may those in suffering be free from suffering. May those in fear be free from fear. May those in sorrow be free from sorrow. May all living beings also be thus, free from suffering, free from fear, free from sorrow.